For centuries, the 12 tribes of Israel have fascinated people with their singular destiny. More than just an administrative division, they are the vibrant symbol of the covenant between God and His chosen people. Linked by a common history and faith, the tribes nonetheless harbor an unsuspected diversity. The intrepid warriors of Dan, the expert sailors of Asher, the wise scholars of Issachar. Beyond the well-known stories, each tribe reveals secret traditions bursting forth like so many living springs. Land of prophets and kings, the country of Israel invites us on a journey through time to meet these 12 brotherhoods that still testify today to God's presence and covenant with mankind. Whether priests or laborers, their intertwined destinies remind us that the strength of a people lies in its unity and diversity. Let us follow the thread of biblical history from the banks of the Jordan to the hills of Judea to discover their fabulous heritage. A thrilling odyssey awaits. Who were the 12 tribes of Israel and what became of them? First the overview, then the specifics. The 12 tribes of Israel trace back to the biblical patriarch Jacob and his 12 sons. These tribes formed the confederacy of early Israelites who conquered and settled the promised land under leaders like Joshua and King David. Each tribe received a territory in Canaan and developed unique identities and roles. Over the centuries, the unified kingdom divided, and the tribes were conquered, exiled, and eventually lost to history. Their names and attributes endure through scripture and tradition. According to Genesis, Jacob had 12 sons who became the ancestors of the 12 tribes: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, and Benjamin. These sons and their offspring divided into distinct tribes as the Israelites multiplied in Egypt. After the exodus from Egypt under Moses, these tribes wandered together in the wilderness. They shared a communal identity and purpose centered on the worship of Yahweh at the tabernacle. When they entered Canaan under Joshua, each tribe received a territory based on its population and needs. As described in Joshua 13-19, tribes like Judah, Ephraim, and Manasseh received large, fertile lands. Others like Levi received scattered towns and pastures. Border tribes like Dan and Naphtali controlled outlying vulnerable areas. These allotments became the ancestral homelands of the tribes where generations were born, lived, and died. The tribes developed unique roles and identities. Judah emerged as the preeminent tribe, supplying leaders and eventually the Davidic dynasty. Smaller tribes like Issachar gained a reputation for religious scholarship. Clans like the Kenites became metalworkers. The tribes divided military duties, with Reuben, Gad, and half of Manasseh providing the front-line troops of the army. Judah, Ephraim, and the other half of Manasseh defended the heartland. Under the united monarchy, the tribes remained loosely aligned while retaining their individuality. But tensions simmered as tribes jockeyed for power, land, and access to resources. After Solomon's death, these age-old rivalries fractured the kingdom. The 10 northern tribes formed Israel under Jeroboam, while the southern tribes of Judah and Benjamin became Judah. These rival kingdoms uneasily coexisted for centuries. Border skirmishes were common as tribes divided their loyalty between the two crowns. But Israel progressively sank into corruption and instability, weakened by religious apostasy and civil strife. In 722 BC, the Assyrian Empire invaded and destroyed Israel, exiling its tribes. This traumatic event became known as the dispersion of the 10 tribes. Refugees fled south to Judah, bringing tales of exile and assimilation. Stripped of land and autonomy, the scattered tribes of Israel faded into history over generations. With no tribal records, they assimilated into other nations, their identities and lineages lost. But their disappearance fueled the messianic hope that God would one day restore the scattered tribes. In the meantime, Judah endured, anchored by the Davidic dynasty. But in 586 BC, Babylon conquered and exiled the people of Judah as well. Unlike lost Israel, Judah maintained its identity in exile. After the Babylonian captivity, descendants like Nehemiah returned and revived Judah politically and religiously. The Jews centered around Judah and Levi became the foundations of Judaism. With the disappearance of Israel, Judah preserved remnants of the heritage of the two kingdoms. The territory of Judah expanded to include former northern lands, unifying the old tribal borders. But fractures between tribes resurfaced in conflicts between Jews and Samaritans, who claimed Israelite descent from Ephraim and Manasseh. In Roman times, the ancestral tribes provided more of a social identity and pedigree than political affiliation. But tensions between tribal factions re-emerged in violent sects like the Zealots. Rome crushed these tribal revolts and eventually expelled all Jews from Judea after crushing the Bar Kokhba revolt in 135 AD. Dispersed worldwide for nearly 2 millennia, Jews maintained distinct tribal identities through names like Levi, Cohen, and Shif, Asher. And the narratives of the lost tribes endured for centuries, fueling legends and hopes that they might someday return. Groups from the Beta Israel to the Pashtun tribes claimed lost Israelite heritage. Although direct lineages faded over millennia of dispersion and assimilation, the 12 tribes remain potent symbols. Their ancient allotments still inspire fervor concerning modern Israel's borders. Messianic prophecy promising restoration of the Davidic kingdom keeps tribal identity alive. Millennia later, the shadow of tribal brotherhood still undergirds Jewish communal memory and debated notions of election. Their names will endure as long as their flawed but inspiring legacy nourishes imagination and identity. Now let's take a closer look at these tribes. To understand who the 12 tribes of Israel were, you must consider the history of the nation. To simplify, it starts in Genesis 12 when God makes a promise to Abraham. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. Genesis 12:2. In this promise made to Abraham, God declares that he will become a great nation. At that point, Abraham had no children and could not have any because he was old, and his wife was barren. Yet, as God always does, he kept his promise, which led to the birth of Isaac. Later in Abraham's life, he had other children, but the promise that God had made continued through Isaac. Isaac eventually married Rebekah and gave birth to 2 sons, Esau and Jacob. To make the long story short, Jacob was the son through whom the promise flowed. It is Jacob who eventually gave birth to 12 sons, who were the fathers of the 12 tribes of Israel. If we fast forward in the history of the nation of Israel, we see later that the inhabitants of the nation were identified according to which tribe they belonged to. What we also discover when we get to the book of Numbers is that there seems to be a couple of variations that need some additional explanation. In the listing of the tribes in Numbers 1, we see that Levi is no longer counted among the tribes, and that the tribe of Joseph is represented by Ephraim and Manasseh. What happened? Does this mean that the tribe of Joseph was split into 2, representing 13 tribes instead of 12? No, these 2 tribes represented the 2 sons born to Joseph while he was in Egypt. However, as you read in Genesis 48, Jacob sort of adopted these sons as his own, and they received the same blessing as Jacob's other sons. Here is what Jacob said. Now your 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, who were born to you in the land of Egypt before I came to you in Egypt, are mine. As Reuben and Simeon, they shall be mine. Genesis 48:5. This helps explain why, when you get to Numbers 1, Ephraim and Manasseh are listed as representing the tribe of Joseph. These 2 half-tribes made up the tribe of Joseph. As for the tribe of Levi, They became the tribe carrying the priestly lineage. They were responsible for the priestly functions, and God chose not to number them along with the other tribes. Numbers 1:47-50. The Levites, however, were not numbered among them by their father's tribe. For the Lord had spoken to Moses, saying, "The Levites, however, were not numbered among them by their father's tribe." For the Lord had spoken to Moses, saying, "Only the tribe of Levi you shall not number, nor take a census of them among the children of Israel. But you shall appoint the Levites over the tabernacle of the testimony, over all its furnishings, and over all things that belong to it. They shall carry the tabernacle and all its furnishings. They shall attend to it and camp around the tabernacle.